Now, here's the craziest part. Craziest part. As of like 2 years ago, Michael Alig got out of jail. So yeah, that was a very, very, very unusual. Let me turn everything back on. Hold on. Let me turn everything back on. Final bits, this, and then what else? Chat. Sorry, I never do this and then I fuck it up. Okay. Everybody's back. That is a very, very unusual film. And I'm gotta be honest, we lost less than 1,000 people, which is insane. Michael Alig died in 2020 of an overdose. What? He died. Okay. When did he get out? I misplaced those. He got out in what year? And then he died in what year? He got out in 2015 and then died in 2020. That is crazy. Yeah, so this is the real life Michael Alig. It is actually insane to go through and look at some of the pictures of him and see how close they got a lot of these costumes. It's actually insane. Like the costuming department really snapped. And Michael Alig really looked like Macaulay Culkin. And then if you want to see James St. James also had some iconic looks that literally they almost captured directly. There's James. There he is with the barrettes. Yeah, so this movie, I'm really proud of how many people made it to the end. I think if you've never seen it before, press 1. Let's see how many people are seeing it for the first time and stayed. Okay. And then if you enjoyed it, give me any kind of emote. I want to see how many people actually had a good time. All right, so yeah, I'll be honest. Watching this movie back, it's so unusual because, first of all, the first thing you notice is that this entire movie looks like footage on a 90s camera. And I think that was kind of the point. I think they shot this entire movie to kind of look and feel seamless when it comes to like the actual footage they have. So when you watch the movie and then I go right to this, which is Michael Alig's real party in a real McDonald's, like you're like, oh my God, I feel like I'm still in this world. Thank you, Caroline Kwan. I mean, this is like insane to look at. Thank you, Caroline. Caroline Kwan Mills. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Both the Kwans. Yeah, I love how the look and feel of the film feels very native to the story that's being told. Right. I think ultimately that is a really cool effect that, like, I don't know if this look and feel or texture or framing or storytelling style works for another story. There's something about Michael Alig and James St. James that is so bizarre. And I remember I first saw this movie in college. I had a friend show it to me when I let them know that I was the fan of like all film, right? And this was her like, well, have you ever seen Party Monster? And I was like, no, I've seen everything. I've never even heard of this movie. And so I watched Party Monster and I became instantly obsessed with this film. I became instantly obsessed because the fact that it was a true story kind of blew my mind. It was like the antithesis of a reality that I understood. And I went back and kind of in the early days of YouTube, I parsed through all of this same footage that I've shown here. Michael Alig and James St. James on Geraldo, Michael Alig throwing the party in the McDonald's, the limelight. There were so many insane moments that I tracked down and watch the real world version of what happened, right? And there's two things going on in this movie that I think are really interesting. Not only is this movie a true crime, but it's also like a period piece in a very strange way. I don't know if any film ever represents this period of time in this specific corner of the world better than Party Monster. It's something that, like, unless you go and zoom into this little strange piece of history, like, you would never know it even happened, right? I was someone who was in the rave scene. I was someone who loved dance music. I was someone who loved drag. I was someone who loved everything around this. And I hadn't heard of this, like, insane story. And I dove in head first, and I read the book. I read James St. James' book afterward, Disco Bloodbath, which is really good if you ever want to dive into it. And you will further understand a lot of the tonal decisions and a lot of, like, the acting decisions that Seth Green decides. But that's the thing, is, like, there are so many moments in this movie where you're like, that is so fucking bizarre. Why is that in there? And then you go back and you watch the real footage and you're like, my God, this happened. He gave his mother ecstasy for a headache. What in the fuck are we talking? What? They had fish bowls full of ecstasy, man, and they were just such an insane timeline. Party Monster, to me, is a really cool premise, because Party Monster, peace and love, looks like shit. And part of that is because they had a $5 million budget, and I think they spent a lot of it on talent, which I kind of really fuck with. Right. I love that they spent a lot of their budget on costuming and song rights and talent. And they kind of they cheated a lot of the actual, like, dance scenes. Instead of spending a ton of money booking out real clubs and doing these, like, massive Blade style rave scenes, they give you these almost like forced perspective, very small, cluttered frame vision of what this nightclub would have been like, you know, at the time. And if you really pay attention, you can see how cheated everything is. There are scenes in this movie that almost feel like the cabinet of Dr. Caligari, where, like, things are so fucking cheated in like a tight way. Like, one thing that always makes me laugh is they were obviously filming the one scene in a bedroom with a mirror on top because they wanted to represent that Michael Alig had, you know, got a nice apartment and moved into a luxury apartment. But I always notice one of the panels of the mirror on the ceiling is missing. And instead of getting a new panel for that or shooting somewhere else, they just crop the shot in just enough that you almost can't see that one of the panels is missing. Like, this movie is done in a very, the term is Hollywooded way, where there is like there's a bunch of very forced perspective to make this movie feel bigger than it is. It's a very small cast in reality. It's a very, they only film in like 5 locations if you really pay attention, right? They film in the one-eyed guy's office, Michael Alig's apartment, and then like a few other apartments that could have been cheated, anything. But like the majority of the film is in like 3 sets. So it's really interesting. Can you explain the rat vision? How did James St. James know what happened? Michael Alig told James St. James what happened in reality. And that was the director's choice on like how to manifest that situation. So basically what happened is in the end of the day, James St. James told on Michael Alig. Because if you want to look it up, they hit Angel in the head with a fucking hammer. They strangled him. They pumped Drano into his veins with a heroin needle. Then they fucking de-limbed him, put him into a box without his head, and shipped him down the Hudson. So, like, the murder was fucking insane. Like, it is totally insane what happened to Angel. So yeah, I mean, what else can we say about this film? What an unlikely fucking cast. Seth Green, Macaulay Culkin, Chloe Sivan, Natasha from China, what is it? Russian Doll. Natasha Lyonne. Yeah, the cast of this movie is so crazy. But yeah, this is kind of a, guys, I hate to say it, this is kind of a gay cult classic. And obviously, you know, a lot of pride. We watch very uplifting gay movies, but I stand for gay rights and gay wrongs. And this one is wild. As an anti-drug piece, you know what's really interesting about this movie is I think what is fascinating about this movie is like you watch this movie versus like a Train Spotting or Requiem for a Dream, which are obvious anti-drug films in their own way. And those films embellish drug use and the effects of drugs so much. This film, you almost kind of like miss some of the things that they're saying about drugs unless you've been near one of those situations or known an addict. Like watching Michael Alig's kind of appearance fall apart, the peeing problems, the stomach problems, the behavioral stuff, like they really nail addiction in this movie in a way that I don't know if I've seen other movies be so like undressed, right? Like this movie almost gives me more anxiety about drug use than like a Requiem, because a Requiem for a Dream. Requiem feels like a horror movie. Requiem feels like drug use pushed to a logical limit. There's something so undressed about the addiction in this movie where like you're seeing these people's lives fall apart, but they don't like hearken to it, right? Like you just see an eviction notice on Michael's desk, or, you know, like them tearing the radiator apart. Like there are these, like, it doesn't feel like, like they almost make it feel like jovial and silly, but it's like so fucking horrible and scary. And I think that kind of juxtaposition is really interesting because a lot of people that are in the throes of addiction are like, it's not like a fucking Hallmark movie. You know what I mean? Like they're not just like morbidly, they're just fucked up. They're so fucked up. And I think like Michael Alig is perfectly fucked up throughout that movie where he's making decisions where you're like, what the fuck? And you're like, oh, right. He's out of his fucking mind on drugs right now. Like, well, like when he just spits on fucking James' head when he's passed out. It's like, why the fuck are you doing? Oh, he's a fucking drug addict, like narcissist psychopath. Like, so, I think this movie, you can learn a lot from this movie. One thing that I think is really interesting is this film cost $5 million for a lot of reasons. And you could probably make this movie with your iPhone now. You know what I mean? Like there is something to be said about the amount of tech in this film is right here now, right here. And you could probably get as quality footage from your iPhone, whatever. as they had in the make of the movie. So always keep that in mind. I think movies like this stay with me. And I hate to quote video game Donkey, but I will. Donkey always talks about the perfectly imperfect video game and how that sticks with him more than the super cookie cutter projects that are like so smooth that they are like this seamless ride. There is something about Party Monster where you just watched a movie. I'm going to be honest. Party Monster is broken. There are so many things about this movie that are like so janky, and done kind of like strangely. But it turns out to be a film that will stay with you. I guarantee you the next time Party Monster is like mentioned or you hear a song from the soundtrack, you're going to be like, Party Monster was kind of dope. That movie was kind of fucking dope. Like, what a bizarre movie. And by the way, I've been waiting to talk about it because it's the thing that I want to talk about the most. The soundtrack for Party Monster is so fucking insane. By the way, this song is by DJ Kyoki. Superstar Kyoki. Dude. Bro, this whole soundtrack is diabolical. Everything. And it perfectly also captures that like 80s collision with 90s where you're still getting Bonnie Tyler released next to like RuPaul. Like what a fucking...
Oh yeah, wow, that's very cool.
There are so many songs in this soundtrack that are like on my deep rotation to this day, which is so crazy. Anyway, I love this soundtrack. A lot of people ask me, what do you think is the best film soundtrack of all time? I would put this on my top 10. Anyway, that's my little spiel. I did about 20 minutes. Now I'm going to open up the floor, Socratic method. You guys can ask me about this film. You can ask me questions about film in general, or you can just ask me questions that are on your mind pertaining to anything we've talked to tonight. So I'll get into my first one. Will, so after this wave, what became of the New York rave party scene up until now? The limelight went down, but the New York rave and party scene is still alive to this fucking day. It never went away. I used to go to raves in like Central Park and like Pacha and stuff. Pacha doesn't exist anymore, I think, but yeah, you can still find a rave in New York for sure. What happened to the eye patch guy? I think he's still alive. I think he got in trouble with the feds, but I think he eventually got out. I don't readily recall that. I'm sure someone in chat can tell you. What do you think of Donnie Darko? Donnie Darko is a great film. We've watched it and discussed it in here. Love it. In honor of Seth Green, can I link an unrelated hilarious clip with him in it? No. Not during film class, sorry. There is a crazy interview with Alig talking about murder. Ooh, do you have it? You want to link it? Question, Party Monster son or American Psycho daughter? Party Monster son. Well, this is such a good movie. I hate that it was rated poorly. What do you think of good movies with bad ratings? So That's an interesting one, particularly when you're talking about Party Monster, because in a way, there are a lot of things about Party Monster that I would say are in common with bad film. To an uncultured observer, some of the shot selection in this movie, some of the sound, some of the scenes, the script runs a little bit long in certain areas. It's a little rinky-dink. However, I think that's more akin to why we have cult features, right? I think Party Monster is a cult feature where, in spite of itself, if you hold it up to other film, you might never say, wow, Party Monster is a standout. However, the experience is so unique and so fun that a part of you kind of goes, well, that ain't bad. You know what I mean? It's like the kombucha of film. Cult are those movies that are so bizarre and so standout and so fun. Yes, I'm sorry. Party Monster is fun. Don't kid yourself. You probably laughed at some point during watching this movie. The movie is very entertaining in a lot of ways. Yes, it is a murder drug story. And yes, the third act does get really dark. But there's a lot of, like, dude, that line where he's like, did you see that? Those drugs just flew up my nose. Like, that is an all-time line. Can we watch Godfather next week since we skipped it for Party Monster? Sure, but we didn't really skip it for Party Monster. I just promised to watch Party Monster and forgot. But in my mind, in terms of gay rights and gay wrongs, is it possible to film casts? Wait, is it possible this film casts a bad light on the queer community? Do you know what the reaction was? Here's what I would say, Higsby. If we live in a world where you can only portray the queer community in a positive light, we live in a fascist nation. I think the point is you don't want there to be just bad stories about gays, right? The problem is that at one point, all we said about the gay community was negative, but the gay community dreamed of a time when they could just be equal. So we had to get positive gay stories, and then we could tell negative gay stories, because the truth of the matter is people are just people, whether they be gay or straight. Michael Alig's homosexuality had nothing to do with his murder of fucking Angel in this film. I think it's the metric fuck ton of ketamine he was doing every day, right? So I think it's a very good question. I think it's a very good question, Higgs. But I think ultimately the idea is we live in a place where representation is so ubiquitous and so even that we don't worry about the light of the story, more of the quality and the truth of the story. So yeah, I think obviously if this is the only gay film I ever showed in my 5 years, you might go, hey, what the fuck is going on there? But obviously we show a lot of Pride films every year, and I just wanted to watch Party Monster because we arrived onto similar topics. Why does Michael Alig's character have a British inflection in his speech? I was genuinely confused. That is how Michael Alig and James St. James spoke. Both of them have very affected speech patterns. The one thing that Seth Green nails, though, which is really funny, is James St. James is like so comported in real life and speaks like this, and then he'll go, which is a really funny detail that Seth Green fucking nailed. But yeah, they both had very affected speech patterns, probably because they were trying to stand out in New York nightlife. So they both kind of like intentionally affected these very unusual speech patterns. Also, the club scene in the 80s was where a lot of queer people on the fringes went to like make a name and life for themselves. Yes, Michael Alig did bad shit, but the club scene at the time was one of the places queer people could find community. Very well said, Caroline. Why did some Culkin acting seem fake? Was it to show him being off? Can I be completely honest? I
I'm a
don't
star.
know if Macaulay
I'm
Culkin is a
bossy.
great
I don't
actor.
take no shit from anyone.
Eye patch guy Peter was deported back to Canada
there you
and
go.
had another failed club but now is working on a series with his filmmaker daughter. Don't know what the series is though.
Thank you. I don't know if Culkin is a great actor, and I think the unusual thing about this film is there are scenes where he feels so locked in on his character. And then there are other scenes where it kind of feels like he's like just trying to get lines out. But I think overall, Michael Alig's character is kind of like that. So ultimately, his performance kind of comes off as like, you believe him in the end. You believe that he's Michael Alig. But yeah, I would agree that I think there are a few scenes where he does feel a little wooden. Why can't we have raves like this anymore? Are there raves like this out there? As someone who's never raved, I want to rave at a fucking McDonald's. That is amazing. Dude, there are some people who are like, God, that was such a sad story. And I love that there's like 200 people who are like, what about the fucking parties? And you want to know why I love that? Because when I was 20 years old, I thought the same fucking thing. I was like, oh my God, that's tragic. Where are these parties? Don't worry, young one. They're out there. They still exist. You can find these raves and have a great time because the palace of excess leads to the temple of wisdom. Ah! All right, what else? So what was going on with the guy they offed? Why was he around them so much if he hated them? Okay, that's a good question. So to clear up some of the historical moments in this film, essentially Angel was a superstar that Michael Alig created. Superstars were the names for the regulars at clubs that they would book these parties with because people would be like, oh, I love this person. I love this person. And then we'll show up, and he kind of made these like local celebrities, and Angel was one of them. Angel was a drug dealer. But because Michael Alig kind of put him on and clouded him, he had some level of reverence for Michael Alig, and he lived with him. They were roommates. However, the murder took place because Michael Alig stole all of Angel's stash. He was a drug dealer, so it was probably thousands of dollars of drugs. And he did them. And so Angel was like, what the fuck, motherfucker? You got to pay me back for that. And then those events escalated into a murder. So, yeah, that's the logistics of it. Pretty bold of Angel to keep his stash in a house full of addicts. Yeah. Seth Green had such a fun range for the character work in the late 90s and 2000s. Do you have a favorite role from that time? This. Oh, dude, Kenny Fisher and Can't Hardly Wait. You're so right. Can't Hardly Wait is actually one of the movies that made me an adult. Can't Hardly Wait is like my favorite teen movie. Can't Hardly Wait is the best teen movie. It is, of all the films in that era, Can't Hardly Wait is the best one. It's the best one. Of all the teen movies in that era, Can't Hardly Wait is fucking incredible. God, that movie is so good. Seth Green is Oz and Buffy. He's pretty good. I don't know, man. Can't Hardly Wait, though. This shit was so real. This shit was so real. Anyway. Isn't that a Replacements song? I don't know which one. Can't Hardly Wait. I felt like the split scene was used to show Michael as someone that had a need to hallucinate. It mirrored his backstory introducing of getting spit on in high school, like he had to inflict his pain on others. Oh, that's a very good take. I love that. I actually really like that take. They were on Donahue too. I'm trying to tell you, like, this was a huge piece of American history that, like, you will never find outside of this little remembrance.
If you don't share with us, explain to these people what happens. What is this about?
Well, then, no, that
Maybe
really
I should. Maybe I should. You're all dropouts. You're ne'er-do-wells. You have no focus in your life. You have no idea what you're going to do. You're young and you're out for a good time. You're hedonistic. All you care is about fun and games and the whole... Here, these are your children. Show them over here, Brian. Now, really, you enjoy what you do. Yes.
Oh my God, is it chocolate chip?
Tell me, Richie.
Yeah, baby.
Tell me.
I mean, you know, everybody's really into this scene.
This is Richie Rich, who is also in the movie. Like, Richie Rich is just cast in Party Monster and shows up like 5 times, which is hilarious.
We live for it, but we would also use the clubs as kind of something to do something else. Yeah, stepping stone, like a ladder.
Yeah.
I mean, we all, you know, a lot of people look really colorful and crazy, what have you, but we're all future superstars, if not now.
Genitalia. Do you get it? Genitalia? You're from New York City. Jenny, she doesn't.
And honestly, this is kind of dope. You know what I mean? This is kind of dope. I love seeing youth in revolt. I do. And that's kind of what it's all about, is it's kind of like, hey, fuck you, lady. We're going to do weird shit. Anyway, kind of great. Any other questions about this film or related? What are your thoughts on Naza 2 becoming the highest grossed animated film of all time? I think there are a lot of people in China. Can we please have the film Human Traffic be addressed in film night? Be addressed is such a fucking insane way of saying, can we watch this movie? Do you think human traffic can be addressed? Yeah, I mean, I love some British humor. I love a little British humor. I don't know where human traffic really falls on a curriculum of mine. Maybe if I feel wild about dude, I feel like I want to watch Spun if we ever go back down this rabbit hole, but I don't know. Did this not strike you as a horror movie your first watch? I've never seen this and it scared the fuck out of me. A horror movie? No. I think there's something deeply unnerving about it. I think anytime there's like, how do I put this? Okay, here's what I'll say. Horror movies are movies that try to scare you. I don't know if the intention of Party Monster is to scare you or if it is trying to just be as close to the bone as it possibly could. I think the scene with the rat, the way that he tells that story is a little unnerving, but I think this is the point. I think there are ghosts and ghouls and goblins scaries. And then I think there is the real terror that comes from reality, right? The real terror that I experience on a day-to-day is like the Brazilian execution video that slides into my Twitter timeline. It's like the reality of global warming. It's the encroaching highway extincting a rare deer. You know what I mean? Like, I think sometimes those fears come for me as I become an adult even harder than the ghouls and the ghosts and the goblins, because I've seen those real horrors. I've never seen a ghost. So ultimately, that might just be you kind of experiencing that kind of bone-crushing empathy that exists as we become very well-rounded persons, where we can feel pain that other people feel. We start putting ourselves in that like feeling of like, oh my God, I almost feel what it's like to be in that apartment. And it's real. I don't know. Do you know the reason behind them breaking the fourth wall? I think that has to do with the style of the book Disco Bloodbath. If you read Disco Bloodbath, it's a like kind of non-traditional book structure because James St. James wrote it himself. And of course, it's very James. Where do I start? I think the beginning is a very good place. And so I think they tried to move some of that voiceover into the movie. Sort of a follow-up question. Any idea what the public's initial reaction to this film was when it screened? I don't think it had much of a reception, if I'm being quite honest. And I don't think that reception was enormously positive. I'm sure there are people at festivals that liked it, but I don't think this was a very general market film. Honestly, can I be real with you? More people probably just watch this film right here than watch this film in its entire like debut run in theaters. There is a good chance that just happened. Does this win an Oscar if it comes out now with better production? It's just so fucking good. No, I don't think so. Maybe for costuming. Is Basquiat worth watching for film class? I mean, I love Basquiat, maybe. On a $5 million budget, it didn't even gross $1 million back. Yeah, that's pretty bad. Would you put this under the umbrella of Trainspotting, SLC Punk, etc.? I mean, with Peace and Love. I don't even know if I would put Trainspotting and SLC Punk under an umbrella. But I get what you mean, like drug stories, cautionary tales, gritty, real to the street. You can. The YouTube channel owned by Michael Alig is a weird trip.
I don't think they see it, right?
Pay no attention.
But it doesn't come up.
But I like it when I'm white.
Yeah, but they don't see
Okay, anyway, so ask me a question.
Sean wants to know if you and I, Sean wants to know if you and I have ever had sex. Okay. Well, that's actually a question that a lot of people have wanted to answer. I think we can answer the question.
Sisters. Yeah.
Crazy. That is a rabbit hole that you definitely can go down. Other favorite queer films? Great question. Brokeback Mountain, I showed Once Upon a Time. And even though there aren't gay actors in that film, I think Brokeback is a must watch. Like if you are not gay yourself and you have like a parent who makes comments like, I just wish they wouldn't put it in my face so much. That is a great movie to be like, you want to take a look? Maybe. So I love that movie. And then beyond that film, Moonlight, I think is incredible. Maybe even better than Brokeback. But more just like a pure story, less than it is like a queer film, in my opinion. It's just a life story where the character happens to be queer. Rocky Horror Picture Show, Hedwig in the Angry Inch, are films that I fucking adore. And then The Birdcage as well are all queer films that just fucking I adore. There are, guys, ladies and gentlemen, I know you're going to say about 1,000 queer movies now. with Peace and Love, I said my favorites. I said what I said. Oh, also Tangerine. Any other questions? So it begs the question, would you still keep a friendship with someone after they horrifically killed someone? Well, that is a question for James St. James. Ultimately, I think that remains up to you. And I think kind of the point of the end of the film and kind of what they arrived on is that I don't think James thought that Michael would have killed someone if he was in his right mind. I think ultimately James really felt like Michael Alig was at the mercy of his addiction when he did what he did to Angel. And I mean, you can kind of look at that one of two ways. One, you can look at the murder as so ridiculous that it was the behavior of an insane person, or you can look at the murder and go, that's the behavior of a fucking sociopathic murderer. Here's the Michael Alig interview answering questions about murder.
We were hoping that we would go to bed and wake up the next day and that it had been a dream. I mean, we were that scared, and it's hard to put yourself in this situation where you've done something like this that's so horrific that really the whole universe has changed. And like that. I don't know of any other story in modern day that has so many drama queens and so many attention whores. And so I can imagine that when the DA went around asking people, questions, there were people that just made up answers because they wanted to be involved in some way. They're probably not used to so many people that want to be involved in something scandalous like this, because most people want to shy away from that kind of thing. But the kinds of people that are associated with this scene, they want to be in the paper, and they want to be, we wanted to be, we want to get attention. And it kind of didn't matter if it was negative or positive attention, just getting the attention. And then, of course, when you make a Hollywood movie of it, so now you have a Hollywood version of an already hyped up version, and somewhere it turns into something completely else. There are a lot of people who just they see something on film, and because it's in a movie or documentary, they think it's got to be true.
There's a story that came out that said you injected his body with Drano. Is that true or false?
That one is false.
There's also rumors that Drano was dumped on his body. So.
That was true, among other things.
Bro, what a fucking turnaround. There's a rumor you injected Drano. False. But they found him covered in Drano. Well, that's true.
Wow, that's very cool.
Whatever our drug-addled minds thought would cover up any scent, or we didn't know what we were doing. I mean, we were just kind of on autopilot and just making snap decisions, and none of them good, none of them right. But that's what happens when you're on drugs. You don't even realize that you're not making right, because you're on drugs. So, I'm not using drugs as an excuse or anything, because I was sober when I decided to take drugs. So, I have to take responsibility for everything that happens while I'm on them. On the other hand,
his parole got denied in his first hearing in 2006 because the judge saw the movie.
we weren't on our right minds, obviously. We were just making bad choice after bad choice after bad choice, and making the problem worse when we thought we were trying to make it better,
Did you have a party in the apartment?
He seems not remorseful. Well, as I remember it, he maintained to his dying day that it was self-defense. He maintained to his dying day that Angel was trying to choke him to death first.
No, we did not. Things like that upset me because they add an air of sinisterness and darkness to it's already a terrible situation, already a dark situation, but that specific thing changes the story from something that possibly could be forgivable in a certain, by certain people in a certain, to something that maybe isn't so forgivable, because it's like, now there's like premeditation and there's like malice and kind of, and so that bothers me. It insinuates an air of, just callousness and like we don't care, or like, we were so racked with guilt and just pain and misery, and there was no way. I wasn't even throwing parties at the clubs. I mean, the clubs were kind of just running. I couldn't have put together a party at the club, let alone my house. We were doing anything, every, defense mechanism and every possible escape and running away that we could think of to like either make, maybe it didn't happen, or, fix it in some way.
After they returned to the apartment, Alig took heroin and then cut up his victim's body.
We just went right to the drug dealer and bought as much heroin as we could buy, because I think we wanted to kill ourselves. Heroin gives you kind of a feeling of that everything is okay, kind of like Xanax, but like, it takes away all of your worries and concerns, and you could maybe do something that that wouldn't seem conceivable if you're sober. So I said, I'm just going to do more and more heroin until I get to a point where I either can take care of this, or I die, and then you'll have two bodies to get rid of, and then I won't have the responsibility.
The rumor is that after Angel had passed away, you had gone around telling people.
We did tell people, and it was a combination of things. It's a very complex thing that when you do something so horrific and monumental in a horrific way, and unfathomable, and just overwhelming.
Was that the real Angel? It looks just like
in a
the
way,
actor.
I felt,
yeah,
and
dude,
this is
all
really
the castings
selfish,
in Party Monster are kind of bang on. Like, you look at some of the photos and they're almost like frame for frame.
Drug addicts are selfish people. I told my friends in an awful way, because I felt like I was like sharing the burden of responsibility now. Like, it wasn't just me that had this awful secret. Now my friends did too, and it was like a little bit of a weight off my shoulders.
Have you read the book? Would you say it's true?
And then
it's very close.
It turned into, when a lot of people knew about it, then it turned into something more like, well, let's tell everybody we did, because then people started questioning,
pay attention to someone. Who were they? If you are asking that question, you didn't pay attention. The person I told you to pay attention to was Angel, the person who was murdered.
So then it was more like, well, let's say that we did it, so they think we didn't do it, So it was a little bit of everything, but one thing it wasn't was, we killed somebody and now you can't do anything about it. It wasn't that. And I think maybe some people think that it was. Nobody that knows us thinks that, but I think maybe people who don't know us might think that, and if they do, that's not true.
It hurts me, because my brother trusted these people so much. He trusted them so much. What am I gonna miss most of him? A lot of things, small things. I'm just gonna miss him.
Because of what happened with the judge, and they said you could not communicate with Angel's family. Mm-hmm. If I was Angel's family, what would you say to them?
I think the best thing to say, and it's true and it's heartfelt actually, is that if they wanted to contact me, I would be very open to anything they would want to contact me about, because this isn't really about me, it's about them now. It's a whole new way of looking at things and dealing with the world, interacting with the world, putting other people first. If that would be something that would make them happy, I would be willing to do anything they want me to do,
So how are things in your life, Michael, these many years after you started?
Things are just great, Geraldo. How are things in your life?
Oh, fine, thanks, fine.
When I see footage of me from back then, and how flippant and kind of, not exactly mean, but maybe arrogant, And it makes me cringe, honestly. And I feel like I have a lot of making up to do. I'm trying to reimagine myself or reinvent myself into a person who is, maybe you will say, less self-indulgent and more selfless instead of selfish. There's a time to be selfish and indulgent when you're 20, 25. I'm 52 now, so I think I need to be the opposite of that. I believe in karma, and I want to balance the scales. And I know that nothing I ever do is going to erase the past and make it all good again. But as long as I'm going in that direction, I'm just trying to incorporate that kind of idea, that kind of feeling into everything I do, really.
So important to remember that Freeze was the equal killer and that Angel especially was the victim. Angel's family came from Colombia to New York when he was 8. He found a home in the club scene. Yes, he was dealing drugs. He wasn't a bad person. And it's important to remember the victim and not just keep, sometimes I'm loath to even talk about Michael Alig because people say just even talking about how horrible he was is a form of celebration, and he's loving it. It's horrifying. It's definitely the most horrifying thing I've ever covered in nightlife.
Damn. Yeah. As I said, it is a fascinating story. It is a fascinating story. Cautionary tale, period piece. Interesting. Can we watch Pink Flamingos for Pride? No, probably not. Was rave culture separate from ballroom culture? Man, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to say no, because I don't even know if ballroom had existed in a meaningful way in the 80s. I'm trying to think. There probably was a scene, but I don't know if they do overlap. It did, yes. What time did ballroom come on? I think ballroom came on a little later. No, they were different. Pose. Okay, true. You're right. But okay, ballroom, were they running out like a warehouse and catwalking and stuff like that? Had it reached that level yet? 70s, mid 80s. Facts. Yes. Okay. Just a little earlier. There's also a racial element. Club kids were very white. Ballroom was for POC. I think more ballroom was started by POC. And I think Club Kids was more origin, very white. But there was an element of Club Kids that was very entitled. A lot of those kids started because they were trust funders. So there is an element of truth there for sure. I think towards the end, though, it was more of a rainbow tapestry of a lot of different races, colors, creeds in the club scene. Any other questions? Alig's doctor told him he had the most extreme case of HPD he had ever seen. Interesting. Can we watch again? No. How are you? I'm good. What happened to Freeze? I think Freeze also went to jail and then got out of jail as well, if I remember correctly. Do you think Seth Green's line during the Christmas party about hacking up the meat is the best part to Alig was intentional foreshadowing? I do. Did you see VTubers are now interviewing directors?
I'm Inugami Korone. No, Korone Inugami. Nice to meet you. I love so much. I love you. I love you. Thank you. では、インタビューさせていただきたいと思います。
Guys, What the just come on my stream, motherfucker. Okay. Any other questions about the film? Can I just point out all the love being thrown around in chat tonight? It's amazing to see you have some love and you have some love and you have some love. Dude, as I said, we have the best community on the platform. Right? I always try and keeps it real, but we are a really nice place. Bro, it's so late. Are you all right? Greg, I think that's your first message. And second, I'm a late night streamer. I stream at the same time every night. It is. Craig, this is when I stream every night for the last 5 years. Any interesting things from the book that didn't make it to the movie? I can't remember that. It was a long time ago. Any other questions about this movie? I didn't know. Oh, no worries, Greg. Glad you're hanging out. Do you think raving is sustainable? Like, do people get old going to raves? Is raving sustainable? Nothing is sustainable. Aside from maybe eating prunes. I think at the end of the day, you're going to have to say goodbye to something. I think that's not a reason not to do it, though. I'll be honest. I'm a huge raver. I always will be a huge raver. I love to rave. I think it's very empowering and stress relieving and a broadening experience as well, to kind of sustainable if you wear earplugs. True. If you allow yourself to kind of go into a state of delirium. I don't know if drugs are a prerequisite for that. I think you can do a lot of things high and you can do a lot of things sober. I don't think raving is really the super daunting, scary thing that a lot of people think it is. Like, if you ever go to EDC, you'll see like young people, you'll see old people, you'll see people with their kids. Like, it's the rave scene is much more flushed out than you think. And people that are in it are fantastic. They're like really awesome people. So I think raving is fantastic. I think dancing is fantastic. Ultimately, one thing I've noticed is, in the words of Fred again, we have lost dancing. It is amazing to me how often now I will go to a club or a party or a concert and no one is fucking dancing. That is so strange to me. And then I go to EDC and it is literally a field of people fucking tweaking and dancing. Like, even at Coachella, I'll be honest, there weren't many people fucking dancing. Like, everybody's just kind of standing around with their phone, like. But at a rave, everybody dances, and I love to dance. Dancing has always been a part of my life. My mom kind of duped me into being a dancer. I took 5 years of classical ballroom and swing. And since that time, growing up in New York in my teens and 20s, I was the white kid that could dance, right? Like I was the whitey with rhythm, essentially. And so there were a lot of times that like I would get a lot of like positive reinforcement from my peers because I could do all the dances that were popular at the time and grind and do all that kind of stuff. And so I've always loved dancing. It's been a big part of my life. What do you think of the roles he could have gone with? Why did Macaulay Culkin choose this after such a long hiatus? A number of reasons. I think he's really good friends with Seth Green in real life. They've shown up in a few things together. And I think he just liked the story and the script. Any other questions about this film? We're 5 hours into our film night. Oh my gosh. Macaulay Culkin's middle name is Macaulay Culkin. Helped. All right, Idode, please help me. Please, I want to stream, but I don't have gaming PC, and I'm poor, and I'm from India. Helped. Anybody want to help him? I just work here, man. You think films like these contributed to actors' struggles with addiction? No, don't. Would you ever do a Godfather marathon? I'd watch the first two. Dancing should be a weekly. Yeah, dancing is very important.
Yeah, wow, that's very cool.
Chalk was. Thank you so much. Anyway, guys, that's it. That's film night. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. Whose first film night was this? Whose first film class was this with us? That would be very strange. One's in chat. That was your first film class, because what a strange film to start on. Wow. It's always amazing to me that after 5 years of talking and teaching film, we still have newcomers who come into a movie like Party Monster. Can you imagine what impression of this community you would get if your first movie here was Party Monster? You'd be like, what the fuck? Anyway, we try and do this every Wednesday. If you want the list of films we've watched, it's here in chat, and I see we'll link it right now. We have a letterbox. We've watched like over 200 movies at this point, which is baffling. So if you want to catch up on the curriculum, you can do. I hope you all enjoyed. This is my favorite thing that I get to do as a streamer, and I'm very appreciative for it. I hope that it helps enrich your life in a small way, because you guys help enrich my life in a very major way.
Oh yeah, wow, that's very cool.
White Peepo _Dini gifted a tier 1 sub to Allergics. They have given 128 gift subs in the channel.
Anyway, it's a real pleasure to get to do this for you every week. And anyway, you know, found a circuit gay streamer. Well, thank you. Anyway, here's the letterbox. Oh God.
Oh yeah, wow, that's very cool.
Everything has like, please don't use ad blocker now. You can click it. Thank you for the Prime. Anyway, that's gonna be it for tonight. Tomorrow I have next. And then I'll do my normal stream. I think at some point we're gonna jump into my whatchamacallit stream, my Death Stranding stream, and hopefully that will be a very fun and long experience. Bow. Ooh, we got Spew on.
Oh yeah, wow, that's very cool.
Cool.
And we got a hype train. All right. Get out of here, you monsters. Anyway, stay dangerous. I appreciate you all. Have a wonderful evening. And I will see you all later. Good night.